10 years ago, the world was shocked when it learned of the mass suicide in Jonestown, Guyana, ordered by cult leader, the Reverend Jim Jones. The impact of this tragedy demonstrated the destructive power that cults can create. Cults are usually defined by their total control over a member. Our next guest is well aware of the mind control that cult leaders can possess. Steve Hassan was a member of the Unification Church, a group better known as Moonies. He was deprogrammed after a car accident enabled his parents to find him. Since 1979, he has counseled members who want to leave their cults. Steve describes his experience as a cult member and as a counselor in combating cult mind control. Also joining us, clinical social worker Arnold Markowitz. He is director of the Cult Hotline and Clinic, which is run by the Jewish Board of Family and Children's Services. Welcome to both of you. Steve, we don't hear very much about cults today, and frankly, I think that many of us, and I include myself, have thought that this is something that has gone away or has not had the current impact that we had seen in the past. Are we misguided?
I think so. I'm in the field, so I see all of the major print media and television media and radio media on cults. And the problem is that cults are in an epidemic level right now since the 10th year, since the Jonestown phenomenon. We have political cults, educational cults, psychotherapy cults, and religious cults. And mental health professionals need to learn more about this problem.
Well, are you changing the definition? In a way, I need to have you expand on that. It was my sense that cults were very closely knit groups, becoming the extension of the family, pulling people totally away from the entire environment that they had had before, often making them labor for free. Now, the things you've already said may have changed the view of what we would call a cult.
Yes, my criteria, as many of my colleagues in the field, is a behavioral criteria. We look at an authoritarian pyramid-like structure with some charismatic leader at the top, deceptive recruiting techniques, and also mind control techniques like phobia indoctrination, information control, hypnosis, and thought-stopping type techniques. So this can be applied, these techniques, in combination in a variety of different contexts, and it really doesn't matter what the particular beliefs of the group are. They can be used for commercial ventures, it could be used for political ventures, but the bottom line is people are not able to think critically or to think objectively about what it is that they're involved with, and they're made to have irrational fears that if they ever leave the affiliation with the organization, that terrible things will happen to them. They'll go insane, they'll be killed by a car, they'll develop AIDS, something like that.
Arnold Markowitz, as you have just listened to all of the above, what are you finding in terms of the cult hotline or the people that come into your agency? Has there been a change in the types of cults? Are they more or less than what we saw over the last 10 years?
Well, I think that cults are increasingly a more difficult problem. We have seen some changes. The most common change that we see are groups that appear to be somewhat Christian, but they are really aberrant Christian groups. Also, there are groups that present themselves as so-called New Age organizations, and they will combine reincarnation beliefs, vegetarian diets, along with some Christian doctrine and some personal growth doctrine to encourage members to join in. The one point that Steve did not mention was that cult groups typically deny personal privacy. So you have a denial of privacy, and that leads to the coerced change in personality.
Well, let me use all of what you have said, though. And Steve, I have heard TM called a cult. I have heard Scientology called a cult. Some people might suggest that radical or fundamentalist religions could be a cult. How would you know if you're entering a belief system that's a part of your own design, or if somehow someone is invading and starting to shape and change the way you think, and the matter of will seems to just disappear?
Well, I think the critical issue is to develop a consumer mentality, to ask a lot of questions and to be very wary of any environment that in the beginning encourages you to ask questions, but after you get involved teaches you not to ask anything critical, or to read information that's critical of the group, or to talk with former members and such. And so I advise people in my book, for example, to ask questions like, what is your group? Are you trying to recruit me? What is expected of me after I join? Is this group considered to be controversial? What is your attitude towards former members? these types of questions can begin to cut through some of the layers of deceit that the more destructive cults use. I also want to emphasize that these groups are pyramid-like in their structure, so when you're coming in from the bottom, you're only given as much information as the leadership thinks that you're ready to swallow. And so for the vast majority, for example, of people in TM who are just taught a basic meditation technique, I have no problem with meditation. It's where you get sucked into the next level and the next level where you're not meditating for 15 minutes in the morning and afternoon, but 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon, and you're devoting your life to Maharishi and becoming celibate and vegetarian. That's when it becomes more cultic.
Even as I listen to this, Arnold, and as a mental health worker, I think that you might agree, or at least examine this with me. To some degree, we apply manipulative pressure or coercion in a number of ways. Parents do it with their children. Teachers may do it with their students. Political groups may do it with people who come in. What about the positive thinking seminars? I mean, one could say that they're attempting to take out negative thoughts, replace them with positive, and not even give you a chance to be yourself.
Well, I would think it's the last part. If they don't give you a chance to be yourself, or groups that do not allow any questions or any doubts, or what is the problem in these personal growth seminars is that the leadership oftentimes is very aggressively rejecting of any ideas that you may have, calling you names. Basically, the technique is to undermine the person's personality and to put them under the control and the submission of the leader or of the group. When that happens, when you're not allowed to challenge and to ask a question, then I would be suspect, and that's a dangerous sign.
Steve, you make a point in your book, if I may just interject,
Sure.
and then you can complete your thought too. You make a point in your book between mind control and brainwashing, and I'd like you to give us the difference and at the same time tell us if we were involved in mind control, and there are a lot of groups that actually call themselves mind control groups, would we know?
Well, that's a very good question. First of all, let me just say that the difference for me between the research in terms of brainwashing versus mind control is that brainwashing is more along the lines of what we think of with Patty Hearst, for example, being kidnapped, being imprisoned in a closet, being tortured, raped, coercion. So in the mind of the victim, they're very clear in the beginning, at least, that these people are the enemy and they're trying to do something to you. With mind control, it's much more subtle. The person who is the target looks at the recruiters as their friends, shares information, participates in the process. It's much more subtle and therefore much more destructive. And I was going to comment before about your other question about how do you tell the difference. I look at what is the locus of control. Is a group teaching people to think positively so that they can live their own lives independent from the organization? Or are they teaching them that you should think positively but then become dependent on the organization for the rest of your life? And that's a very important thing. When you're going into an organization, obviously you want to keep your eyes open and you want to ask a lot of critical questions. There are cult-watching organizations like the Cult Awareness Network, which you can check out. And be very skeptical of any organization that doesn't want to tell you up front what it is they believe, what it is they expect from you if you affiliate with it. And be very wary of any organization that tries to cut you off from relationships with family or friends who are asking questions.
Let's stop for now and let's invite our audience to join us. It may very well be that we will all be in the process of discovery here. Have you been solicited? Do you feel that you are being recruited? Have you had an experience with the issue of mind control? And particularly the issue of deprogramming, which we'll talk more about. But first, here is our number. It's 213-469-5533. Do join us.